Hey folks, my name is Robin and welcome back to Only the Best Fantasy Novels. Today I'm going to talk about The Well of Ascension by Brandon Sanderson, the second book in the original Mistborn trilogy, which I'm now reading for the third time in preparation for Wind of Truth, which is being released December of this year. So the first time I read this book, honestly, I struggled through it. I really didn't have a good time, and that was well over 10 years ago. The second time I read it was maybe 3, 4 years ago when I bought like everything in all the Cosmere stuff in a hardcover, and I actually enjoyed it quite a bit more. This time, I really enjoyed this book, and it just shows how much I've changed as a reader as I go. But anyway, what is the Well of Ascension about? Basically, it picks up a year after the events of the Final Empire. The Final Empire has fallen, a new king rules in Luthadel, and a new form of government has also been established. And then an invading army with another man who would be king of the new empire arrives. And he's after what he's after the rumored treasure of the Lord Ruler, which everyone assumes is in Luthadel. So yeah, the siege of Luthadel has begun, and the ruling body of the city is scrambling politically, trying to decide how to deal with this army when a second invasion force arrives at the head of another man who would be king. So, needless to say, there's some serious problem. The city has some serious problems, and something decisive needs to be done. And then Vin begins to hear and begins to see strange things in the mist. And then reports start to trickle in about people being killed by the mist, as if they don't have enough problems. And then a third king approaches, but this time he's at the head of an army of Colossus, which are these essentially extremely unkillable creatures in this world. Think of like Sanderson's version of orcs. So yeah, things be popping. So what did I think about The Well of Ascension? This book it's quintessential Sanderson, quintessential early Sanderson, in that it's primarily a tightly paced political thriller. Like this book is all about the characterization, all about the politicking, as as Ellen, Vin, the crew, and the governing body of Luthadel, they scramble to decide how to even begin to deal with these threats. In addition to that, we have like a lot of character growth going on. Like Ellen, under the guidance of Tindwyl, is learning to is starting to learn to become a charismatic leader, a strong political force. Vin is as the novel progresses, she's more and more confused with the new direction life has taken, with her relationship with Ellen and the way he's changing, with her position in the new religion that has sprung up among the Scar that is basically deifying Kelsier. And in addition to that, there's a new guy lurking around, Zane, a Mistborn, who she begins to kind of become entangled with. And then there's Zane himself, who is essentially, as the story progresses and we find out more about him, he's essentially a variant version of Ellen, which is just piling on the confusion for her. There are a lot of parallels there. So yeah, it's a lot of character work. It's a lot of political drama. One thing it also has a lot of that I was surprised about this time around is actually the world building. Like this time around, we really dive into the mythos of the hero of ages, mainly in the form of Sazed's studying. He has a much more prominent role in this book, which also ties into the fact that this book focuses on the second of the known magic systems in this world, Ferrochemy. Sazed is a practitioner, so we find out more about Ferrochemy through his lens, essentially. And then as with all Sanderson books, in addition to the early Sanderson books, in addition to it being like this political thriller, character work kind of style of story, like there's also a heavy focus on religion. In this case, with Sazed studying the emerging religion of Kelsier and the Survivor. Basically, So there's a lot going on. And I think I mentioned this in another video, but one of the things that Sanderson really excels at is actions and consequence. Like, if something happens, what are the consequences? And he's really great at plotting those out and deciding which threads he wants to pull at. And in this book, we get a lot of the consequences of what happens when a 1,000-year-old empire that's provided stability for centuries upon centuries collapses, and no one knows how to function without it. Like, the government system is gone, essentially, and people have to figure things out for themselves. And yeah, like, it really drove home that as much as the Lord Ruler was like this evil force, whatever, and people lived such terrible lives under his rule, it really drove home this book really drives home just how much he was capable of doing with the society that he established. Like, to some extent, he did care enough, basically. So yeah, there's that. Like, the vast majority of this book, honestly, it's taken up by the character arcs of Ellen, Vin, and a few other characters that who get screen time here and there. We do see the other crew members. They're still very much present, and we see them also change and evolve to meet the demands of this new society, this new governmental structure, and to kind of fit in and continue on now that the initial reason they all banded together is no longer there. They we all see them grow and evolve in their own ways, some more than others. Some manage to stay very true to themselves. Some begin to change quite dramatically, and to greater and lesser degrees. And it was interesting because, like, even though these are side characters, they do very much grow on their own and become their own thing over the course of these novels. So that was pretty much fun, kind of. Like, this book also, it kind of deals with some of the ramifications of like, just the trauma that Vin suffered as a child. Like, as much as things are very different for her, it's also left this stain on her in the way that she thinks and perceives things, that it very much impacts her decision making to some extent, and we do see that come into effect in this book as she's more and more thrust into a position that she's not emotionally or mentally ready or even equipped to deal with, given her background. So there was that. And this actually brings me to one of my nitpicks about Vin in particular. Now, I don't know about you, but when you have a conversation with someone, and they whisper, is it just me, or is that a very irritating way? Like, I would constantly have to ask them, what did you say? What did you say? What did you say? And reading through this book, one of the most common adjectives used to describe how Vin speaks is whispering. Like, and it stuck out for me when, in the span of like 2 pages, 7 times when Vin spoke, it was described as Vin whispered. Like, that would actually make a... If anyone from Sanderson's team is listening, feel free to take this idea. That would actually make a really good Mistborn drinking game. Take a shot for every time Vin says Vin whispered, when the text says Vin whispered. I guarantee you will not survive to the end of the book. But yeah. Yeah, but like, as I said at the start of this video, this is a book I enjoyed quite a bit more than I did the 2 previous times. Granted, I do have the experience of having read these books twice before, so like, I see where things go. Like, I know where things are headed, and I was also able to, as the story unfolds, to just kind of single out and pick out the small threads and the small nuggets here and there that Sanderson seeded throughout the course of the novel that do eventually come to play a major part in the inevitable Sanderlaunch that this series is probably most infamous for, the way in which the Hero of Ages ends. But yeah, like, I even surprised myself reading this book at how much I was able to enjoy it. I think it's just because like I'm mentally I'm in a spot where I can appreciate greater what Sanderson is doing with these books. So yeah, I think that's pretty much all I have to say about The Well of Ascension. If you've made it this far into the video, thank you very much for watching, and I'll see you next time.